Happy Camper Radio with Skip Huber.
It is that time once again, time for another edition of the Happy Camper Radio Show, the only place to be when you're ready to talk camping. Camping is what we're about. Camping is all we talk about. When we go camping, we never think about anything but having fun and relaxing. But there are some hidden dangers out there in the world of camping, I'm so sorry to say. And we'll take a look at some of them today, as well as some real-life stories that you ought to be aware of. It's the hidden dangers of camping. We'll talk about it today on this edition of Happy Camper Radio.
Happy Camper Radio.
And, of course, the Happy Camper Radio Show can be heard all around the world by great listeners just like yourself. You can find us in the iTunes Store and Podbean, MyroGuide, Stitcher, the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, and now on Spotify. Tell all your friends to tune in to Happy Camper Radio today. You can get in touch with us here at the show anytime by calling 404-537-2267. That's 404-537-CAMP. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Camp Talker, add us to Circles on Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to www.happycamperradio.com. You'll find all of our social media icons right there on the homepage. You click on any one of them, and you'll connect right up with us. Daniel's back in studio. Hello,
Yay.
Daniel. Good to see you again. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a nice long break here that we've had, but we had a lot of things going on behind the scenes, haven't we?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yes. How do you like Studio B?
I love it.
Yes, we did some...
First class.
Yeah, you think so?
Oh, definitely.
I'll take that as a compliment. But, yeah, we had an opportunity here just the past couple weeks to shoot some test videos. And eventually what we're going to be doing is not only doing Happy Camper Radio, which you can find on the podcast, but also we'll be shooting some YouTube videos. And that way everybody can see our smiling face and see exactly what we look like behind the camera.
Oh, boy.
Right, so,
you know, it puts on 10 pounds, so just to let everyone know.
But anyway, yes, we had to do a few upgrades there, and we're still in the process of finishing that up. But it's really good to be back behind the microphone again. And a lot to talk about here today, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I want to go over to our shout-out window because, oh, yeah, we have some folks that we definitely want to take a moment to say hello to. Starting off with Sean Fox of Moore, Oklahoma, Matthew Albritton of Gainesville, Florida.
Gator country.
Yeah, you know it. Napoleon Demetrius Hardy of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Stephen Schultz of Berwick, Pennsylvania. They all like us on Facebook. Who do we have here? Country Oaks Campground in Dorothy, New Jersey. Hello to you fine folks up there. Leslie Harvey of the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And finally, to Sandra Lesh of St. Louis, Missouri. They are all following us on Twitter. Thank you all so very much, every one of you. Glad to have you on board. More importantly, thank you for being a part of this great Happy Camper Radio family. Would you like to be a guest on the program? Get in touch with me, Skip, S-K-I-P, and happycamperradio.com, and we'll definitely make that happen. Daniel, I've got a letter here in the mailbag.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you didn't deliver it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, didn't happen. But anyway, here we have Angela Munden. She writes, greetings from Lake Catherine, Arkansas. As a mom/kids camping group, and she writes, hubby would prefer to stay at home in the quiet. I love the podcast to help with newbie tips. Thank you so much. I'm working through the past podcasts. Angela, thank you so very much for getting in touch with Daniel and I here at the program. Daniel, we're going to have to do something about hubby here. We got to...
Yeah, ease them in. Have her take them to one of those yurts. If they have a campground with yurts, and just ease them out, ease them out of the creature comforts, take out the water, take out the electricity. And if you do go camping, like many people know, I go in a pop-up, which is nice. Stay next to the bathhouse, stay next to the clubhouse. It'll be like a hotel. I mean, if you hang out in the clubhouse long enough, it won't really matter.
As long as they're not somebody like I know who is nothing more than a 5-star resort all the way.
That's right.
Then we won't have a problem.
Right.
But, hey, Angela, again, thank you so much for getting in touch with us here at Happy Camper Radio. Daniel, I want to talk today about some of the hidden dangers associated with camping.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to think that the only thing that I'm going to worry about when I go camping is going to be the car breaking down.
Right.
Have you ever had that concern? Have you and the wife ever thought about that when
actually,
because you take some of those long distance trips?
we were heading up somewhere in the mountains a couple years ago, I think, and the truck overheated and something was going on, and so we had to stop. And thank goodness we had roadside assistance, so we got that all taken care of. But yeah, it was about $500 to fix it. Thank goodness we were near a big town and there was a shop open, but we got it fixed and we got on our way. And yeah, that was $500 that we weren't expecting, but it was going to happen eventually, but we got it taken care of.
Well, you get it all done in one day.
Exactly.
Good for you, because, it could have been something as bad as a transmission repair.
Yeah, it was just overheating really quick, and I put some fluid in it and it wasn't helping. And, we had the pop-up behind us, so we had to have them tow it with the pop-up. No, actually, we had them take off the pop-up, then tow it to the place. Thank goodness it was only a few miles away, and we got a little bit of shopping in.
That was the old pop-up you had, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I think that was one of the last
one.
ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Last time we went
All
up there with that one.
But, that's probably one of the things that is in the back of our mind, but we try not to think about it too much when we're planning a camping trip. If, you do all the right things and you check the air in your tires and make sure you change that oil regularly. That is so very important. Make sure your fluids are all topped off. If your car hasn't been into the shop for a tune-up lately, it might be a good idea to check with your local mechanic and get in there before you venture out on a long-distance camping trip. All right, some of those things I do think about each and every time that I go camping because, yes, I drive a vehicle that has a lot of miles on it. Daniel, that old Ford pickup truck is approaching 300,000 miles.
Wow.
Still running like a charm, but yes, if I'm going to be going away somewhere long distance, and long distance to me is anything over 100 miles,
Yeah.
then yeah, I'm going to have some concerns there. But there's also some concerns about camping in the wilderness and some things you need to be very concerned about. I hope that everybody, when they venture out into the wilderness, carries a first aid kit with them. Now, you can get a first aid kit that has all the necessary things, and including everything but the kitchen sink, and keep that at camp and keep it in your storage box. But if you're taking a hike somewhere, and Daniel, you're a hiker.
Right.
Your wife is a hiker.
Right.
I assume that you probably have one of those fanny packs on you, and you probably have a first aid kit.
It's funny. Most hikers, all they carry is ibuprofen and Band-Aids and hand sanitizer. I mean, with hiking, you always got to worry about weight and everything. I mean, they have little first aid packs, but for the most part, people just carry Band-Aids and Neosporin and ibuprofen for the most part. But I mean,
well, that's pretty much everything that's in your first aid kit.
Yeah. I mean,
that you're going to need as a hiker.
There's some snake bite stuff, but I mean, if it's dangerous. I mean, anywhere is dangerous. So you just gotta be mindful at all times and don't let yourself get into certain situations that might not work out for you.
You would have to mention snakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll tell you, I don't know what's going on this year. Right here in the metro Atlanta area, we have had a copperhead infestation in this area.
Yeah.
And it wasn't no more than 2 or 3 months ago. A baby copperhead was on the back patio.
Wow.
And I'm freaking out, Daniel, because the dogs are out.
Right.
All right. And even though this little guy was just all coiled up and everything, not bothering anybody, I'm sure the venom in that little guy is probably enough to send the dog or even myself to the emergency room.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you got to be careful of that. Just if you're out on a hiking trail somewhere, be mindful about where you step. Because if you're not familiar with what a copperhead snake looks like, go to the internet right now and take a good look. It's very easy for a snake like this to blend in with the forest scenery. And you'd never know when one is going to be right there in front of you. And you just got to be very careful. You don't want to step on one of these snakes. You don't want to get even close to one of them where it's going to cause him to panic and strike, because then that's going to be a whole new issue that you've got to deal with while you're camping. And it's, again, something we're not thinking about when we're making all of our plans to go on a camping trip. Have you ever had any problems with snakes while you were camping or hiking?
No, I know that as far as hiking is concerned, if you're up in the Pennsylvania area and you want to get on the AT up there, I know there are a lot of snakes up there in the rocks because a lot of the Pennsylvania portion of the AT is snake country, and they're everywhere. But as long as you don't bother them, it's fine. I mean, we've run across a few, like just walking on paths, but usually they're more scared of you than you are of them. So just as long as you watch where you're going, everything should be fine. Just keep your head in a swivel.
I
as
remember
they
the
say.
story that Gary Sizer told us.
Mm-hmm.
Him out on the AT. And
Yep.
he was getting ready to venture off the trail because he was hungry and he wanted to go to this burger place that he heard about. And as he's getting ready to get off the trail, there's this big old rattlesnake standing in his way.
Yep.
He just decided to, I'll wait till the next time. Very smart move on his part.
Yep.
But yeah, snakes are something you definitely want to stay away from and stay clear of. That's one of the things that I worry about anytime I go camping, especially in the summer months. Of course, I'm a fall and wintertime camper more than I am anything else, and snakes are hibernating for the most part during those times. Another thing, Daniel, that I am really, really concerned about here, and I've got to mention this because, things like this do happen, and as unfortunate as they are, when you're camping, especially if you're camping in the national forest or on public land, be careful about where you pitch your tent, or even in your case, Daniel, park your pop-up.
Yeah.
Because, the trees have a tendency to come down, and we don't want that to happen at the wrong time. Now, I know it's easy to say that your chances of getting hit by lightning are greater than a tree falling on you while you're camping.
Mm-hmm.
Here last month, Daniel, in the town of Covington. You familiar with Covington?
Oh, yeah.
That's over in Newton County. And for those of you not familiar with the metro Atlanta area, Newton County is about a 45-minute drive to the east of us here.
It's home of Dukes of Hazzard. Skip, back in the day, they filmed Dukes of Hazzard out there in Covington and Conyers.
And I never watched one of those episodes. I just was not a Dukes of Hazzard kind of fan. But in Covington, there was a Boy Scout camp over there, and there was a group of scouts getting together. They were in their fourth and final week of camping. And late one afternoon, a storm rolled in. And it's sad to say, and I'm just kind of ad-libbing here, Daniel, and I hate to come to the bottom line, but the two scouts jumped into their tents seeking shelter. And unfortunately, a large tree came down on that tent. One of the scouts was able to get out the door with a few bumps and bruises, but it was a sad story for the other scout, a 14-year-old from Texas. He passed away because of that tree coming down. And, this is something that concerns me anytime that I go camping anywhere. I always take a look and see what the condition of the trees are around me, which way they're leaning, and is there even the slightest possibility of a storm coming through and knocking that tree over on my tent. First of all, I would say, and I'm Daniel, I'll tell you what, I'm just almost at a loss for words here, but I have been out in the storms probably more than I can even sit here and discuss. And each and every time a storm comes in, and comes in unexpectedly, because unlike back in the days when I used to go camping, maybe 7 or 8 days at a time. Yes, I'm on a 2 or 3 day trip now, and then I pack it in and go home. But on those long trips, you just never know when a storm's going to come in. And it's always a good thing to have a weather radio with you. They're not very expensive. And if you keep one of them handy, you can get a heads up on some of those storms before they pass through your area. Unlike a couple years ago, and you remember over at Georgia Stone Mountain Park when we were camping out over there, right in the middle of the night, I'm talking like 2 o'clock in the morning, a big microburst come down there and picked up everything and just threw it all over the place. My brother and I got out of that tent. The large canopy that I had was totally destroyed. I mean, the wind picked that up and just tossed it over into the next camping area. Fortunately, it didn't hit anybody's car or RV or anything like that, but it messed up all the poles on that. And I remember people getting up out of their tents, out of their sleeping bags, and just tossing everything they had into their hatchback, to their trunk of their car, in the pickup truck, and they were out of there. The next morning, I think there was only maybe 7 or 8 of us left that finally ended up going back to sleep, but we looked all over the place, and people had packed up. This was a Saturday night going into Sunday, And most people, pack up and go home on Sunday anyway. But that was an early camping trip for a lot of people because of that. So, you got to be very mindful of the weather. You got to be mindful of the trees. And, I always like to look for shade, especially when I'm camping in the summer. I don't camp all that often during the summer months because of the heat, and I don't get along with heat very well. But if I'm going to pitch my tent somewhere, I'm definitely going to pitch my tent in an area that is either partially or well shaded. And you got to be careful of where the trees are. Are they leaning in a particular direction? If it's possible that that tree could come down, would it disturb anything in my campsite, whether it be my tent, my camping gear, my pickup truck, or anything like that? And I always make it a point to try to get myself into a position where I can at least put my head on the pillow at night and sleep knowing that I'm going to get up in the morning and everything is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that for the most part, I mean, when you go to a place, there are camping sites, that are picked out. But like if you're in the middle of the woods, hiking a trail or something, usually the camping spots that you can tell that people have used over the years are kind of down. Well, I'm talking about like the mountain hiking, but they're down and kind of sorted near a stream. But I think what you want to do is you don't want to camp on top of a mountain or on the side of a mountain. You want to try to, get down into a gap or something. And I think you'll have a better time of not getting hit by a tree.
Well, for a lot of folks who do make reservations online and have never been to a particular campground before, will go and look at a campground map and say, wow, this place is by the lake. It says it's partially shaded and, it's got all the amenities, everything that I need. But when you get there, you've never seen this campsite before. You haven't seen pictures of it. And you just don't know what kind of trees are there and what direction they're leaning and things like that. Again, I pay very careful attention to those things. And oftentimes it may be difficult to move to another site. Unless, of course, you're camping at a private campground, they have some openings available and they might be able to move you. There will be no problem there. But if you just don't feel comfortable by pitching your tent under a large tree and worrying about whether or not that tree is going to come down, it's one of those things you just got to be very mindful of. Here, about a year ago, similar situation. 15-year-old girl was camping up at Red Top Mountain. Have you ever been there? I have
Maybe.
been. Red Top is beautiful. I've been there on a couple different occasions, but this 10th grade student from Harrison High School in Kennesaw, Georgia, was seriously injured when the tree snapped and fell on her about 11:30 p.m. this one night. It was on a Friday, and Daniel, what was so sad about this was a birthday camp out.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be a fun time for the weekend, and disaster strikes. She suffered a fractured skull and injuries to her spine, and unfortunately, she passed away later on. These trees, Daniel, I swear, it's a sad situation, but it does happen. These are only a couple stories that I'm sharing with you right now, but I'm sure that, a lot of our listeners who have not paid any attention to the news, local news in this area, probably never even heard these stories. Probably like we don't know about stories that happened over in Arkansas or Minnesota or places like that.
Yeah.
But things like this do occur when you are camping. I hate to see a fun time turned upside down. And, things like this, sadly, like I say, they do happen. So, if there's something you'd like to share with us here at the Happy Camper Radio Show, I mean, I try not to look down upon anything and, just kind of do anything to bring our spirits down. But I'm doing this because I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and it probably is going to make each and every one of our listeners be a little bit more aware the next time that they go on a camping trip.
Well, I think basically all you can do is be as prepared and as knowledgeable as you can about the outdoors and all the different things that can happen and things that are out there. I mean, it's not just trees, it's spiders, it's snakes like we, talked about earlier. It's slipping and falling and, breaking your leg. I mean, you just gotta, be careful and, keep your head on a swivel pretty much and just learn as much as you can about the outdoors. And, there's tons of books. There's podcasts like ours that, make you aware of the situations and just be as educated as you can. And I think you should have no problem. I mean, but unfortunately, stuff happens sometimes, and, you can't really do anything about it. But as long as you educate yourself about, the dangers and everything, and, make yourself aware, it should be fine.
The slips and falls, I mean, I could tolerate that. A broken bone, yeah, they could be fixed, but a human life cannot be replaced under any circumstances. I would think that a lot of your private campgrounds, where they do have a lot of guests coming in year-round or even seasonal, would probably be mindful of a situation like this and actually go that extra mile and probably bring some arborists in to inspect the trees at their campground to make sure that, there's not any possibility or there's any danger. I know they say, and of course I'm not an arborist myself, and I don't know a whole lot about the life expectancy of a tree and if a tree is getting old and rotted out. But I've heard about mushrooms growing around the base of the tree as an indication right there that, the tree may be in trouble. So I think that, your private campground owners are probably going to be very mindful of that because they don't need this kind of news. They don't need this kind of disaster happening at their campground. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
they they probably have insurance inspectors come through. I'm sure that's, part of the deal when you have your own campground. But, they try to make it so that the guests that come in and out are as safe as they can be, even more safe than, the people that are coming in. They're making sure that you're safe, even though you might not even think about this kind of stuff. They're thinking ahead of time because they don't want high insurance premiums and stuff. And, they don't want anyone dying on their watch,
Well, I can tell you this, Daniel, I do have a first aid kit in my supply, and I do keep it updated. And I got to make sure that all the Band-Aids and, everything is there just in case. Not just for me, but for anybody who may be camping with me. I think the most anything has ever happened to me, outside of that microburst situation I just talked about, I probably got burned on more ashes at the campfire than I care to think about. Yeah, you're going to get some burns every now and then.
Yeah,
and,
that's another danger too. Speaking of dangers, make sure when you are at the campground and you start a fire that night to put it out until there's no smoke at all. Just drain it as much as you can because, things can happen and it goes quick if it happens. So,
I have seen on a lot of occasions with people that I have camped with, and I got to say they're not as dedicated to camping as I am. But when I have camped with them, I'm finding the more firewood that they have, the more abundance of wood they have, the longer they want to keep that fire burning at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I check in maybe around 7 or 8 o'clock at night when I go camping. I'm out there for a little bit right after dinner. I'll sit by the fire, but I'm not going to be an all-nighter. I'm not going to be out there. I'm just too old for that. But I've noticed a lot of the people that I go camping with, yeah, they stay up, they talk, they make a lot of noise, and they just keep that campfire burning as long as they possibly can. And I hope by morning time that they have already put water on it or shoveled some sand on it or did something. Because, yeah, you're right. The last thing you really want is anybody leaving a fire burning and then finding out that the campground's on fire in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And I think another thing is, like I was saying before about getting educated and stuff, I know that I think Red Cross or something, I think they give CPR training. And, if you're a parent or something, and, I think it'd help a lot to get CPR training, get everyone in your family CPR training because, it's all about information. If you know how to do something, if you know how to, do the Heimlich maneuver or, give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, it probably will never happen to you, but it always helps to, know these skills because, that's what it's all about. The more skills you have, the better time you're going to have and the better you're going to be equipped to handle situations.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Well, Daniel, it's been an interesting conversation. It's not been the absolute most upbeat of our episodes that we've done, but it's something we really need to talk about. It's something that needs to be addressed because, unfortunately, a couple of the stories that I shared with our listeners today, these are real life stories. They did happen. And we just hope that we never hear of another story like that again. It's time now for our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Happy Camper Radio.
And today we're going to take you to the state of Tennessee, to Indian Boundary. Daniel, this is a wonderful campground. If you ever venture up around Chattanooga area, and I know you and your wife have been there.
We always go
This
there.
is a place, a family-oriented campground, which I know you would enjoy. The Indian Boundary Lake covers 96 acres at an elevation of 1,560 feet and sits among some hardwoods and pines. At the lake, visitors enjoy watching beaver that inhabit the area, identifying several species of ducks and other waterfowl, and trying their luck at catching bass, sunfish, and catfish. If you're an angler, you definitely want to bring your pole along. The Chattahoochee National Forest, where this campground is located, is in eastern Tennessee and stretches from Chattanooga to Bristol along the North Carolina border. The 650,000-acre swath of land is Tennessee's only national forest. It lies in the heart of southern Appalachian and is home to more than 20,000 species of plants, animals, as well as many rivers, creeks, and lakes. Daniel, this is an 87-site campground. It has electrical hookups, water faucets throughout the campground, grills, picnic tables, and lantern posts. Modern restroom facilities add to the comforts of visitors in this natural setting. It's a great campground to enjoy. Check out all the activities and amenities right there on their website. We'll have it all week long on Happy Camper Radio. And also, if you haven't already signed up for a recreation.gov account, now's the chance to do just that. Look for that little gray box in the upper right-hand corner of the page. It says sign in or sign up. When you have a recreation.gov account and you visit a lot of these recreation.gov campgrounds, it makes your sign-up process go so much smoother anytime you have a recreation.gov account. This is a wonderful campground that I hope to visit sometime. It's up in Tennessee. It's part of the Chattahoochee National Forest. It's Indian Boundary. It is our featured campground of the week here on the Happy Camper Radio Show.
Skip Huber. HappyCamperRadio.com.
And as always, if you have a campground you'd like for us to feature on the program, I'd love to hear about it. So would Daniel.
Yeah.
Give us a shout. SKIP at HappyCamperRadio.com. Be sure to include a link to the campground website. Well, Daniel, that's about going to wrap up another edition of the Happy Camper Radio Show. I am so glad to be back in the studio again, and I'm sure our listeners are too. Anyway, we've got another great episode coming up very, very soon, so you stick around for it. Remember, friends, every pet deserves a loving home. Do like I did. Visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. You can find us online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at www.happycamperradio.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at CamTalker. Add us to Circles on Google+, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Happy Camper Radio Show is a presentation of Skip Huber Productions. I'm Skip. I am a happy camper. Daniel's a happy camper.
Yeehaw!
And we've got one of those pets right here in the studio with us today. So happy to be here, too. We'll catch you again real soon. Thank you for listening, everybody. This is Happy Camper Radio.